everybody. Well, today is Christmas Eve and I'm busy baking sourdough bread to give to some of my neighbors for gifts, but I'm also going to make some cheese today, and we're going to have some of this with sourdough bread tomorrow, so it should be a really good treat for Christmas. And this is a soft cheese, and this one is called Gervais. So it's a really rich one, creamy, and I'm going to show you how to make it. First of all, there's some things you'll have to have that are not normal ingredients. I find them on the internet. You might find them at beer brewing places, things like that. You have to make sure everything is clean and sterilized. You need to have, in this case, I'm going to use a direct set mesophilic starter, and I'm going to use a liquid vegetable rennet. So those are things you might have to purchase, or you will have to purchase for this cheese. Other cheeses are much more simple. So let me get started and I'll show you how to make cheese. Okay, I swapped out for a smaller pan because this is a smaller recipe than I usually do. So I've got my pan ready. I've got 2 2/3 cup of vitamin D whole milk, and be sure that it does not say ultra pasteurized. You need it can say pasteurized. If you can get raw, that would work even better, but I don't have access to that. And then I need 1 1/3 cup of heavy cream. So we're going to just put all that in the pot. And I think I forgot to tell you that you will need a good thermometer, and I have this handy dandy digital with the probe. It's very accurate, but if you're not going to use this for other things, that's a lot of money. So I would just get a good thermometer to use, like a baking thermometer, as long as you can get a good reading on the temperature. And we're going to take this up to 80 degrees, and this is right out of the refrigerator, so it'll take a couple of minutes, but it doesn't take long. So I'll be watching this carefully, and as soon as it gets to 80 degrees, I'll show you the next step. Okay, it reached 80 degrees, and it happens really fast, so don't walk away. Now I'm going to add a packet of the direct set mesophilic starter, and I just kind of sprinkle that over the top, and then I'm going to stir it in well. Okay, now I've got 2 tablespoons of cold water, and I've got 1 drop of the liquid rennet. And I'm just going to pour this over the top of the spoon so that it distributes. And now we're just going to go up and down with the slotted spoon. And this could take 5 minutes. It might even take longer than that. What we're looking for is that see, I do too many things, is for this milk to start to coagulate. And that's going to start separating into the curds and whey. So just going to go up and down with the slotted spoon until it does that. So rather than keep you here for 5 minutes, or however long this takes, I will bring you back when it starts to do that. Alright, it took a little longer than the 5 minutes, but it's just a very gentle up and down motion with the slotted spoon. But the recipe calls for it to, as soon as you see it start to coagulate, then you stop stirring. So I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it is starting to coagulate. it's not cooking it until all the curds form. We're just gonna do this. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this, cover it, and we're gonna let this sit for 24 hours. And preferably around 72 degrees. So I'm gonna get this covered. I'm gonna put it here on the back of my stove where it's probably warmer than most places in my house. And I'll bring you back tomorrow to finish this up. All right, it's been 24 hours, and when I showed you before, there were just a few little lumps in here. But what we have now is pretty, it's kind of like maybe sour cream, that kind of texture. So what we're gonna do now is I've got a bowl underneath with a colander, and I've lined it with butter muslin, which is like a fine cheesecloth. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to ladle this, and you can see the difference. We're gonna ladle it in here. What we're doing is we want to drain the curds from the whey. We want to get this to a more solid form. So I'm gonna put all this in here. And we won't throw away the whey. Throw away the whey. I can either use that when I make sourdough bread instead of the water, or I could use that, I could give it to the chickens. And you can use it for other things also. So you don't throw away the whey. Always find another use. All right, now what you're gonna do is we're gonna bring the four corners of the cheesecloth together. You know what? I think I might have to double this butter muslin. It's going right through it. So I'm going to double that. All right. I quadrupled this muslin, so it should hold now. And we're just going to gather it together. And I think I'm going to put a rubber band on this, and I'm going to hang it from a cabinet so that it will drain down through it. So let me do that, and I'll bring you back after a few hours. Okay, just real quick to show you what I've done. This is hanging from my cabinet knobs, and I've got it over the colander in the bowl. And I'm just gonna let this drip for about 3 to 4 hours. I may have to scrape it down a little bit so in case it stops dripping. But we want to get a lot of the whey out of there. So I'll bring you back in a few hours. All right, so this hung for about 3.5, 4 hours. And then I got out a fresh piece of muslin and I put the cheese in it, just lightly wrapped it, and I kind of made it flat. So now what I'm going to do is I put it in my cheese mold on a rack in this big bowl. And I'm just going to put the top on it. Let me see if I can adjust that for you. That may be a little better. All right, so what this calls for is it calls for 15 pounds of pressure. Well, I don't want to buy a cheese press for as little as I use it because they're very expensive. I found a different way to do it. So I've got my mold here, and I'm going to put, I weighed this out, it's a cast iron Dutch oven. And that was 13 pounds. So I added a 2-pound bag of brown sugar. So now I'm just going to let it sit like that. And that will sit 6 to 8 hours. So I'm going to let it sit and drain. Well, I let this sit more than a few hours. I let it sit overnight because it wasn't ready last night when I went to bed. So I left it on here. So I'm going to take out my 2 pounds of brown sugar and my 13 pounds of Dutch oven. And I had to add these last night because the Dutch oven ended up, after a while, sitting directly on top of the mold, so it wasn't pressing down. So I got creative, and I have these silicone trivets, and I started with one, and then I ended up with 2. So now I'm going to take out the top of the mold. And then we're going to take out the cheesecloth that this is in. It still looks a little bit wet, but now what we're going to do is we're going to unwrap it. And there is our cheese, Gervais. Now what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to put it in a bowl and just add just a little bit of cheese salt. It's a different kind. I'm not even sure what the difference is, but it takes such a little amount that I just go ahead and buy it. So let me get my little bowl. Just plop that right in there. So you can see it's nice creamy cheese. This is creamier than cream cheese or Neufchâtel. It's just very rich because of the amount of cream that we added to it. So let's add just a touch of cheese salt. I don't want to add a lot, and you can add herbs. You could probably add maybe dried fruit, but I don't want to do that. I just want nice cheese. Alright, so I put in just that little bit of cheese salt, and I'm going to mix it in well. Okay, now I'm going to taste for flavor. You can see how creamy this looks. Oh, I think that's perfect. I don't want any more salt. It tastes wonderful. Now I'm getting ready to heat up a loaf of my sourdough bread. And I think we're gonna try this on my bread along with maybe some salami. We'll see. We'll see what I've got, and we'll see what we want to add to it. So while my bread is heating in the oven, I just wanted to share with you that when you use this muslin or cheesecloth, you don't have to throw it away and start all over. I will wash this out thoroughly, and then once it's washed, then I will sterilize it in boiling water so that I can, and dry it well so I can use it again. And this is what it looks like. This has been used a number of times. But I washed it, and before I use it, I'll sterilize it again. So I've already sterilized it, but just to be on the safe side, I'll sterilize it before I use it. So you're not being wasteful. I've got Shayna hiding back here beside me. She's going to help me taste test this. So I've got some of my homemade sourdough. And of course she's surrounded by the puppies because there's food involved. And they know that Shayna is our weakest link. So we're just going to put a nice smear of cheese. And then I've got some hot capicola. And so here you go, Shayna.
Thank you.
What do you think?
Oh my gosh. That is divine. It's so creamy.
It really is. It's very creamy. Okay, my turn.
It is delicious.
Oh, what's not to love? That is so good.
It is.
So, try making your own cheese. It's not hard. Most cheese, they don't take very many ingredients. Little bit of patience. But this is so good. I wish you could be here to taste it with us, especially along with sourdough bread. It's wonderful. Thanks for watching, and I hope everybody has a happy new year.